China's massive growth rates has been one of the greatest stories told over the past several decades, but the Chinese economy certainly isn't the only one posting huge growth rates. The African continent is often referred to as the sleeping giant. Such terminology often points to the great potential Africa has. According to McKinsey's 7 report, Lions on the Move, the progress and potential of African economies, Africa's combined gross domestic product will be 2.6 trillion by 2020. The report further says that Africa's consumer spending by 128 million households with discretionary income is expected to reach 1.4 trillion. It is well endowed with resources of all kinds, including natural and human resources. In the recent past, Africa has been flourishing, with the following countries making up the list of the top 10 economies in Africa. Starting us off at the number 10 spot is Tanzania, with an estimated GDP of $47.4 billion. As of 2017, Tanzania has an estimated population of 55.7 million. The International Monetary Fund and World Bank Group, among other important development partners, have supported the East African nation to make important economic and structural reforms and sustain its economic growth rates. Despite looming poverty in the country, the new political leader, President John Magufuli, is a promising change to the country. He is already in the process of minimizing the country's overspending by cutting the cost of unnecessary government spending. Tanzania has recently seen high growth rates because of gold production and tourism. The economy also runs on telecommunications, banking, energy, and mining, as well as agriculture. In terms of per capita income, however, the country is still one of the poorest in the world. Next on the list is my home country, Kenya, with an estimated GDP of $70.5 billion. With a largely diversified economic base, Kenya has been largely resilient through the emerging markets downturn over the last year. While final numbers for 2017 are still being crunched, it looks like East Africa's largest economy grew by at least the 5.9% forecasted by the World Bank, and that may even approach the 6.8% growth given by the revised IMF prediction made in October. One of Kenya's advantages has been its membership in the East African community, which has evolved from a customs union to a common market, and has long-term aspirations of a monetary union and political federation. On the other hand, the country faces not insignificant political, security, and economic uncertainty in 2017 due to the presidential elections that took place. Now seen as not only the hub for East Africa, but for Central Africa as well, across a number of sectors, Kenya's influence on the continent has not only brought about internal opportunities, but has led to it becoming a major focal point for foreign direct investors. Tourism, telecommunications, media, and constructions are all prominent sectors in providing this sustainable growth. At number 8, we have Ethiopia, with an estimated GDP of $72.4 billion. About 3 decades ago, the whole world came to the aid of Ethiopia. The country was going through a dreadful famine. 3 decades down the line, Ethiopia is emerging as one of the top economies in the region. Its economy also depends on agriculture. It's the second largest producer of maize on the continent. Coffee and horticulture have also been doing well quite recently. Further, a doubling of Ethiopia's road network in 2 decades has allowed more farmers to bring their produce to market. On average, Ethiopia's economy is growing at 10% every year. That's the highest growth rate on the continent and is expected to double within the next 7 years. This means that by 2025, it will have grown to a middle-income nation, according to the World Bank. At number 7, we have Angola, with an estimated GDP of 89.7 billion. For much of the past decade, Angola has been identified as one of the fastest growing economies, not just in Africa, but in the world. Since its 27-year civil war ended in 2002, the country has been growing from strength to strength, thanks primarily to success in the oil industry and strong export markets. Officially known as the Republic of Angola, this country is a member of the African Union and Africa's second largest oil producer. In 2017, its economy grew by 5.1%, which was below the estimate of 7.1%. Growth was mainly driven by agriculture, non-oil energy, fisheries, construction, and manufacturing sectors. At number 6, we have Sudan. Until mid-2008, Sudan was infamous for civil wars that greatly devastated the country. However, after 2008, the country's economy sprang back into action, and as of 2017, the East African country has a GDP of 95.6 billion. Its main economic activities include agriculture and gold and petroleum mining. It is the third largest producer of sesame in the world. Other products include cotton, coffee, cottonseed, wheat, sugarcane, tobacco, peanuts, and as you can tell, many more. Now with long-running political unrest, mostly a thing of the past, the country is now once again an attractive investment proposition, and its GDP has benefited as a consequence. At number 5, we have Morocco, with an estimated GDP of $101.4 billion. The Kingdom of Morocco has for many decades featured among the top 10 economies in the continent. This has largely been attributed to good policies and stable political structures. Main economic activities include fishing, agriculture, and mining. Interestingly, Morocco is one of the top producers of cannabis. Okay, Morocco. At number 4, we have Algeria, with an estimated GDP of $156.1 billion. Officially known as the People's Democratic Republic of Algeria, it is the 10th largest country in the world and the largest country in Africa and the Mediterranean. Algeria has always been a regional rival to Egypt. The main economic activities driving the country comprise of agriculture, fishing, and mining. The country is well gifted with quite a number of valuable materials. They include iron, copper, zinc, mercury, lignite, calamine, and phosphate. Its economy did not do as well as it did in the past. In 2017, its GDP grew by a low 3%. The growth was driven by investment by public enterprises and private demand. Unemployment also fell in 2017 and is currently at 9.8%. Coming in third is South Africa, with an estimated GDP of $294.8 billion. Having long been considered as the gateway to Africa, South Africa's position as the continent's #1 economy has finally been usurped over the past year due to the inconsistency of some key sectors. While still the #1 foreign direct investment proposition by a sizable margin, problems within the private sector and internal structures has inhibited the kind of growth seen in the first decade of this millennium. Missing out on first place, but coming in number 2, is the bridge between Africa and the Middle East, Egypt, with an estimated GDP of $336.3 billion. Officially, the Arab Republic of Egypt, the country has undergone political turmoil and transition to emerge even stronger. A new constitution was adopted and presidential elections were held in May 2014. Parliamentary elections were also completed in December 2015. Towards the end of 2016, the new government subjected the economy to shock therapy in order to secure IMF funding. This involved floating the Egyptian pound, cutting fuel subsidies, and hiking tariffs, and caused a huge spike in inflation. Following the implementation of these structural reforms, however, Egypt received the second round of IMF funding. Egypt, famously known as the Jewel of the Nile, relies heavily on its mineral resources such as copper, natural gas, aluminium, steel, and iron ore. Topping our list at number 1 is Nigeria, with a GDP of around $405.1 billion. Nigeria has always been referred to as the Giant of Africa, both in terms of economy and population. Since 2015, Nigeria has consistently been topping the list of the richest African countries in terms of gross domestic product. The country had overtaken South Africa, which for many decades had an iron grip on the helm. So the GDP of the largest economy in Africa is valued at over $405 billion. This is majorly attributed to, surprise, surprise, its vast reserve of oil and gas. Unfortunately, the exploding population of Nigeria has rendered citizens and inhabitants at large poor. In the midst of plenty, even with all the wealth and first position on the list of biggest economies. As a disclaimer, all the information used to make this video was gathered from the IMF and World Bank, but there is an important flaw in the way they gather their data. Both these institutions source their data from tax returns published by the governments of these countries, and there's a well-known secret in Africa. Companies don't pay their taxes. Well, those are the top 10 largest economies in Africa. Let me know what you think. Was your country on the list? Was there any surprises for you? Whatever you think, let me know. Goodbye for now.
I said, you gon' remember me. You said, what's your name again? Friday, don't recall, but it's alright. I'll re-jog your memory. I said, you gon' remember me. You said, what's your name again? Friday.